Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Has everyone gotten the link? It's in the chat room.
I put it several times, but if you still miss it, I can repeat it, or one of us can repeat it. Okay, my name is Gamze. I worked at Johnson & Johnson as a Agile coach, software development manager, Scrum master, all sorts of things like that. And I've been part of the Agile RI group since we founded it a little over 2 years ago. So I'm going to be facilitating today. And this is our board, and as you see, we have some topics. And I'll give it another 2 minutes. If you haven't put your topic yet, please look at the topics and see if you see something is not there, please add it, and then we'll start voting.
So I'm gonna try to mute everyone. Let's see if we can do that. I'm not sure if I have a mute on. Would everyone mute themselves and then unmute when you want to speak? I don't see a mute all. Maybe I can mute people individually.
Yeah.
No. That'll just help with the background noise. If we mute everyone, just remember to unmute.
I'm just looking at the topics if there's something we need to combine. So instead of going on topics very similar, we can combine them. But so right now it seems like everything has their own space.
And did you, I'm sorry if I missed it, did you mention, are we going to try and use dot voting? I see there's the vote link that then.
I think everybody has 3 votes. So we're going to do dot voting. And you can use your 3 votes however you like. Either you can put it on one on each item, or you can put all of them on one item, however you like, whatever catches your eye and would like to talk about. And then we are going to pick a topic based on the voting, and then we will give some time limit. And this is a nice tool. And if you don't have it, it is a 30-day trial period on this tool, leancoffeetable.com. And then if you want to buy it, it's just like membership is only $10 a month for yourself. And they have different plans for groups. So I got it for my team at work. Anyone need more time? Okay, I think we have a good set of topics to talk. And now we can go ahead and vote. Anybody has any issues while voting?
I think we need some tiebreakers. Maybe somebody can throw all 3 votes on something.
Maybe you put it on your own topic so you come to the top.
Weight them.
Yeah, there are some good ones here. I would like to talk on, all of them.
I think Scrum to Power Dynamics is winning so far.
And whoever put that item, it's better if you can start the discussion with that person to explain a little bit more so we know exactly. Yeah, actually, before we guys vote, while you're voting, let's do that a little bit so that if you are not really certain on what that item is. So can someone explain Scrum Team Power Dynamics? What exactly would you like to talk about? I mean, whoever put that item will be Nice to talk about it a little bit.
Remember, you need to unmute.
Now everybody muted. Can you guys hear me?
Can hear you.
Okay, but
Maybe
no one
the
else.
person who entered it, maybe they dropped. If anybody who voted on it wants to talk about their thoughts on it, just to get a sense of.
So which one is it?
And the one with the, I think the highest vote right now, power dynamics.
Or left, Scrum.
So I voted. And oh boy, I have it.
Yeah, that's echoes.
I think we all have echo. So what I was thinking was that the whole dynamic of, what if the product owner has, like what has an FM Global, they're of a higher level than the Scrum Master, and they are a higher level than the team. So sometimes what the product owner wants takes precedence over either the team or the Scrum Master.
Okay, thank you, Sue. And initial work intake from outside the team. Can anyone just like 1 or 2 sentences on that? Whoever put that item.
Yeah, so I put that in. Currently working with a company, trying to figure some of that out. Some of the teams are actually running Kanban, some do Scrum, where they have, emails come in, they have a remedy system, they have Jira, they have forms that actually flow into Jira as well. And so just trying to figure out some of those workflows and get them a little more centralized and organized.
Okay, thank you. I think the rest are pretty self-explanatory. Running retrospectives, I guess, how do we run it? Like what kind of tools we use? Scrum metrics, like what kind of metrics do you use and suggest using for others? Sprint demo versus sprint review or combination. So that is a kind of like little bit explanation because there's a sprint review, but there is no sprint demo event. So maybe we'll get into that in the details. If anybody wants to elaborate it beforehand, please go ahead.
So I had thrown that one in, and I've worked with some teams who simply do nothing but demo the work, kind of working on that principle of, the best thing is working software, and that's what they want to show off. And then they'll just use the retro to kind of review, look at their burn down and kind of within the team look at how their sprint went. And then other teams put together giant PowerPoints and, have formal reviews of exactly how their sprint went and every impediment and every, thing that came in and out, and as well as demoing work done. So.
Nice. Okay. And I think we are good. Anyone need more time for voting? See the bottom of it somehow. Okay. I'm going to start the discussion now. If you're all set. It's asking me to give me like a demo before I use the tool. Okay, so these are the topics to discuss. The tool itself just like ordered them based on the votes. So we are going to start discussing right now. We're going to pick from the top and I will move it to discussing. Then it will ask me how many minutes. So we're going to set a minute like time box for this. So I'm going to start setting 5 minutes and then we'll see after 5 minutes, we're going to be asked like, do you want to continue thumbs up or thumbs down? And based on that, we will either set a new timer to continue or stop this and then move on to a new topic. So this is how it works. It's just simple like that. So I'm setting like 5 minutes and we started. Okay, let's start discussing. Doug, you gave a little bit of background on your topic, but would you like to elaborate a little more?
Sorry, I didn't get off mute very quickly. Too many screens. Yeah, so just, some teams certainly create their own work intake. They might start with epics and then generate from within a team. But if people have experience maybe working on a team where the work is coming from other sources, and then maybe they're refining them once they get into the team. Any processes people work through to do that? I'd be curious.
So one of the issues that we had was that, so I work in the finance portfolio, and sometimes the leaders of finance wanted to work on a particular item and wanted something else prioritized. But the product owner would be dealing with someone maybe in a different geography who was a little lower down in the organization, and the product owner would think this other thing was more important. So what we've ended up doing is we've had a series of monthly meetings, and it's basically the CFO's directs and their direct reports, where we talk about, this is the product owners present, this is the priority. So they kind of present back to finance what the other stakeholders said from the other geographies. Now, we asked for everybody in the other geographies to kind of, talk about it in their hierarchy, but we also make sure that there's equal, there's the same priority. This person in the business in Johnston thinks it's the same priority as this person in the business who might be in Singapore. So we try to take a lot of extra steps, well, maybe not a lot, but a few extra steps so that the entire business is on the same priority. And there's good and bad to that, but it's what we've had to do at this point.
So how did you guys refer to that meeting itself? I'm just curious, like if there's a certain kind of phrase that you use to describe that level setting or prioritization.
Actually was in that meeting this morning, and I don't think that it has a good name. It's just basically it was just called a discussion, and it was the person who reports to the CFO and all her directs. And we basically, the product owners presented, here's my backlog, here's what I've done, and here's what I intend to do. And at that point, someone could have said, well, why do you have that particular priority? And it might be because it's important to someone in a different geography. So we don't really have a great name for it.
Just curious. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's called monthly backlog review with the business, something like that.
Anyone else has an input?
My organization, or my area of the organization, we're on SAFE, and we have different teams that, some of our teams follow a roadmap, and so we have the high-level epics that we pull off the roadmap, and mostly stick to that unless there's help needed across teams, like consultation, or there's a skill set that they needed help from our team with. Then we also have we have a systems team that handles the intake of production issues, and they use ServiceNow. Mostly they're all day in ServiceNow, and they export. We have an integration with Jira, so then they would export. We just have to kind of that one point of contact, kind of ITIL model, service desk model, and then they escalate through Jira to our first tier team. That's our second tier team, because our systems team can resolve some issues in ServiceNow. They escalate in Jira, and then that also can get back to the original app development teams that made the change to begin with. That's kind of our intake process. Yeah.
I'm gonna be stopping you guys and be rude, but that's how it works. Now let's just vote on it. Do you want to extend or no preference on the same topic to continue? Okay, so I guess we have 0 extent, so I guess we're gonna finish the topic. Doug, do you feel like you want to discuss a little bit more?
No, that's
Like 3
fine.
people, no preference. Okay.
I might send a chat message to Derek. But
Okay.
thanks.
Okay. So we'll take it here, and this is like before. I think maybe I didn't explain well at the beginning. If you didn't see Lean Coffee before, this is when you don't have an agenda for a meeting, but you want to democratically create an agenda for the whole group to discuss some items. So that's when we use it. Like there are some meetings, there is an agenda set, but there's some meetings like this. We don't want to set an agenda beforehand. We just want to make it together as a group. So that's why we're using this facilitation method and Lean Coffee. Okay, I'm gonna take the next one now. I don't know why I'm on the table. See, all sorts of things are happening. Okay, another 5 minutes for this. See, Scrum Team Power Dynamics. Sue, I think you put that topic. Would you like to again open it up? Are you on mute? Anyone else has, I think she already explained to us the power dynamics between like different layers and groups. So anybody is experiencing that and how you guys are approaching that?
I would love to know how, if anybody is approaching that. Because I've been very fortunate to have good product owners who would, who would be willing to sit down and, open the coaching as well as, cooperation, collaboration with the teams and getting their own skill set better. So if anybody has experienced that really bad in their organization, I mean, they have tried a few things. Feel free to share.
In my experience, the power dynamics mostly like happen with the product owner, where product, when they don't understand really what Scrum is, what Agile is, product owners still want to act like project managers, and they want to come and dictate every day what the team is doing and when they should finish things and how much they should take at the planning. So that, it happens several times. Mostly it doesn't, but it happens with some people, and it's really hard and it's a struggle. And as a coach and as a Scrum Master, you're trying to coach everybody, the product owner, the team, and trying to make that person understand how Agile works and how Scrum works. And this is about the team, how much team can feel safe and how much work they can do. It's like up to them, and we're just looking at the backlog together, which we are just in the business of maximizing the value for them as a product owner. So it's a lot of coaching, it's a lot of talking to that person, but it doesn't always, it's not an easy thing, but unless that person is really changed their attitude and perspective about it, that's a struggle. But you keep interpreting, interfering as a Scrum Master to help the team, and just try to talk in retrospectives about some of the things that are happening. Anybody else has any experience? Maybe different dynamics?
Yeah, recently I've seen people outside the Scrum team, influence what the Scrum team needs to do. And while they may have been very justified and, had very, high priority requests, one of the challenges is just how it's presented. Instead of pulling somebody aside from the team and saying, hey, we really need you to work on this, I tried to coach the more senior stakeholders, managers, to document what the request was that they were requiring this person for, to reach out to the product owners, and to actually justify what the importance was and the value, so that it wasn't just a disruption, but it was fully vetted and people understood what the scope was. And you get a lot more buy-in from a team when that happens. Sometimes there's no way to avoid people being pulled to other work, but they're a lot more accepting when they kind of understand the scope and the importance.
Anyone else?
So one of the things that we've done is kind of highlight those successes. You know, when the power dynamics are not at play, when the product owner was able to, you know, function in doing their role, and the Scrum team, the dev team was able to play their role, and the Scrum Master, look at what we were able to produce. You know, look at what we were able to do when we weren't having the team pulled in all these different directions, and try to highlight that. So we've tried that a few times. And actually, that's when we kind of had the most success. You know, when we were able to say, look, if you let the team alone and let them do what the for this short period of time, and let the product owner what the product owner put in their backlog, let them do that work. And then your new work will come in on the next sprint if you know you chat with the product owner about it. That's actually when we've had the most success.
It's the time's about to expire now, so let's vote. So we have like 2 and extend and 2 end the topics and 1 no preference. Maybe we can extend it another 3 minutes or so, see if anything else comes up. Anybody has any experience or an insight on how to figure out some of the issues happening in the development team, like outside of PO and Scrum Master, there's development team. Like sometimes they don't gel really well and they don't really work really well, and there are some people always disruptive. Like, did you have any experience with that? Anybody dealt with that, and any suggestions?
I do have that experience. One of my team, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I was just checking my mute. So in one of my team, there were developers who always had, I would say, heated argument when QA used to come up that you have a defect. They used to take it very personally that somebody is pinpointing their mistake instead of taking this as an opportunity to fix a defect and release our stories instead of doing a production fix. It's better and easier this way. But that was I would say not very healthy.
What are the things we can do or you did to help with that?
So I explained him the same thing. What I'm saying here, that it's not healthy once you go and fix your issue in a production, and if people are specifically developers will it is more bad for developers because after few times people will start noticing that always this person's code has a production defect. So to avoid that, it's better that you listen to your QA. If you have a doubt, run it on your own machine and see that is it working or not. And even if you think that this is working perfectly fine, why don't you have an opinion from a BA saying that was that the actual requirement, instead of putting your energy having heated argument with QA? Why don't you sort it out in a different way? That will have a very positive impact on the entire team instead of having this heated argument. Just imagine that if your QA does not let you know in advance that there's something which is broken, and he just give you a certification and it breaks in production. What will be the impact on your career if people start noticing that it is always your defect, or it is always when you release something, it always breaks? So think that it is an opportunity for you to improve on your code, then taking this as personal, I would say, taking this personally and thinking that somebody is pinpointing your mistake and putting you down.
Okay. Again, time is up. Let's see if we are continuing or no. I think we are ending the topic. I mean, just on that topic, I'm finishing this because no extend on that. But when we get to working agreements, we can continue on that discussion. Maybe kind of like, to me, it's related. Okay, so the next one is sprint demo versus sprint. I don't know how this works. I have to use my mouse. I think it's gonna work better with that. Okay. Okay, let's start this. Doug, I think you put that and you mentioned that the teams do different things, either just do a demo or some other things in the sprint review.
Sure. So just curious, people on the call, if companies where you work, if there are requirements to do an end of sprint in a certain way, or if the teams are coming up with how they want to do it and what those might look like.
Doug, I'll add something here. I would just say that you have to have a certain, at least my experience has been at the companies I've worked at, that you have to have a certain number of requirements. I've always liked to have the developers who develop something demo it, but also kind of review to make sure, it's a 360 review. So it's not just about whether the story was done, but whether it was written correctly. Some improvements I think can be learned when discussing specific tickets and not holding it necessarily for the retrospective. But I noticed before when you introduced this topic, you talked about preparing a PowerPoint. I would not, I can't imagine doing that because that seems like a lot of pre-work. But I don't know if anyone else does that amount of pre-work to prepare a PowerPoint for demonstration.
So we used to do PowerPoint, and then we stopped doing that. And we used to do team demos and business demos. And we still do team demos, but we do business demos as on the unneeded basis. Essentially, if it's needed, we'll do it. If we don't have anything to show as far as functionality outside, if we're only doing some background work, we usually don't hold a demo.
What is the purpose of the team demos? What are you getting out of it?
So a lot of members just working on different parts. So just more for just to show the entire team what was done throughout the sprint.
Okay, so they don't have any exposure to that until the review time?
Well, usually they do, but they may not have that great of exposure. So a lot of them, they may work on different components. And then, sometimes they're just so bogged down in doing just one thing or two things that they may not know exactly what the other person knows. They might know something about it, but they may not know it in detail.
Yeah, I've seen it like a good opportunity for knowledge sharing. Two people knew how something was done, and then they can share within the team.
Yeah, something that may be helpful. What we do is every day after stand up, if something is done and ready to go to formal testing, we want team to demo it to the whole team, like somebody, whoever is developed it, just do the demo, everybody what we have done, and then if everybody agrees, like, okay, this is what we needed to, this is compliance with the acceptance criteria, then the QA officially, the QAing starts after that, and then at sprint review we just have our stakeholders. I mean, that's the purpose of sprint review, is showing what the increment is doing and then getting opinions from stakeholders for the direction for the next sprint or next several sprints, so to see if we are going in this right direction and it's exactly what we wanted to do from product owner's perspective. And product owners ideally should host that meeting, mostly taking charge and be leading the meeting, showing what's done and talking to stakeholders, but that's rarely happens in my whatever project I work with, and it also depends on what project you're on. But I think it's a good idea to talk to the team on working, put some working agreement items on how are you going to handle the demos so that the whole team can be aware of what's going on, and doing micro demos are really helpful throughout the sprint.
I like that word, micro demos.
Yeah, micro demos, so everybody knows what's going on and the product owner looks at it and approves it or not. Because review shouldn't be the time that the product owner sees what's going on. It's too late.
Agreed.
We've started doing that too, kind of as a last checklist item for our stand-up. Does anybody have anything to demo for the product owner? And our sprint review, we have kind of a sprint review, more of the logistics gets talked about in the retrospective. The increment gets talked about in preparation for our cross-team roadmap review. That's how that one goes.
Let's vote right now and see. I'm just gonna wait for everybody. I don't know why the facilitator has to also vote and just show it on the screen. This tool, I guess, maybe something we should add to the backlog. Okay, so I guess we're gonna end the topic right now with the most votes on the ending side and with no preference. Okay, the next one is tools and techniques to be used for coaching product owner. Okay, we'll open it. Can someone talk about it? If it is your item, please, to start the discussion.
It was my item, and the reason I added is because I recently appeared for an interview, and they gave me a few scenarios that how did you handle it? And after that discussion, they said, have you ever coached your product owner, and what are the tools and techniques which you have used? I had multiple occasions where I had an opportunity to coach my product owner, but it was never using any tools or techniques. So as I said, I thought it's a good forum where I can ask people and I can learn something if they have used any tools or technique for coaching a product owner.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. Who would like to speak on that topic?
Sounds very formal, tools and techniques. One of the things that I've done is just kind of reached back to some training materials, and maybe it's a list of responsibilities for a product owner versus Scrum Master, and so just talking through those. So that kind of helped to say, oh, as an industry standard, for Agile Scrum, these would be the responsibilities of a product owner. Do you agree with those or not? So that's one idea.
I think having a good relationship with the product owner also really, really helps. And then things become more, easier, especially if you can have a face-to-face communication. That's really even better. But I remember one time I had a PO, and when she was asking me, should I have to be in the refinement meeting? I'm like, of course you should. You should be there. This is your meeting, pretty much. We are refining the backlog. And then she told me, you are very by the book. But then, it just kind of like starting Rocky with a product owner is just like not really helpful. And then, finally we came to a point where we were like having, better relationships, like messaging each other, talking offline a little bit about the things that we're doing, asking personal things like, how are you doing? How was your weekend? Things like that, being more friendly. It really helps. And then PO is more receptive to what you're saying and what you're trying to do, and also explaining the reasons why you are trying to do things, not just because it should be that way. That was my experience, having a good relationship, and especially if we can, having face-to-face conversations.
I have used a lot of empathy when I sat down to coach my product owners, understanding where they're coming from, why they're asking for the things they're asking for. Also asking things like, are you open to feedback? That kind of starts the conversation. Then they give you the permission to talk. It kind of opens up a lot of doors. If you see any anti-patterns in the way they are working with the team, you would be able to sit down and give that feedback and explain in terms of Agile, in terms of Scrum, and then ask for their feedback on it too. Like, what do you think about it? Understanding where they're coming from, and it's helped me a lot when I coached product owners in the past. So empathy goes a long way.
I think some of the challenge for product owners, they aren't always, dedicated. They might have multiple tasks, they might have multiple projects. So to your point of empathy, understanding where they're coming from, or, what's their past experience? Were they a task-driven, product manager who lived and died by milestone dates? Or just understand their experience.
And also it helps. Sometimes there are product owners, they just been thrown into this and without really having any understanding or education on Scrum. Like they're trying to do something, but they're not really fully aware of what they're doing. Maybe they are feeling the stress out of it, like not really understanding some of the things. So maybe, helping them get educated a little bit more about Scrum and then, helping them to understand some of the things. It depends on the company, I think. Each company has their own way of assigning people as product owners. Okay, time is up. Let's see. Please vote now. Okay, so we're ending the topic. Okay, the next topic is Scrum metrics. This is actually, we added this from Agile AI backlog. It was one of the items came when we collected some backlog items for us to talk about in some of the sessions that we have, monthly sessions. So we are opening it now. So what are the Scrum metrics you're using? What is helpful? What are your suggestions for the group here?
I'm just curious if anybody uses a happiness metric for each sprint or monthly to kind of get a feedback from the team and what that might look like.
I start using one. Go ahead.
So when I used to work with Capital One, we had this as one of the we used to have quarterly survey, and this was one of the question in our survey, that how happy you are with your team and with business. So not as the happiness metrics per month, but this was one of the question in our survey.
Yeah, I always find it's interesting. People use just the term happiness metric, but depending on the question or many questions and how they're asked, it can be very different. So.
Yeah, there is a site actually that does a happiness metric that you can just go there and track your ratings, and you can see if your team is improving or getting better, if there are some areas to discuss. And I did once. Now I'm planning to do it like every month so that I can see if we are progressing. But in addition, in every retrospective, I put like a scale on my retrospective board, say what is your metric, happiness from 1 to 5, and I look at the number. Right now it's mostly like 4 out of 5. I keep asking people what will make a 5, why is it 4, like what are the things that we can improve. So at least even if you are doing just simple 1 to 5 over there, or 1 to 10, or whatever you prefer scaling, and you can ask the team at every retrospective, even if you don't have like an online tool. But there is an online tool that I'm using. I cannot get it right away right now, but I can share it with you guys later if you want to, so you can go look at it and use for your teams. And also happiness is somehow misleading. There's team morale. They say it's more important than happiness, because everybody can be happy with whatever they're doing. You can just tell the team, okay, today you don't have to work. You can go play something as a team. They're happy at the end of the day, but you haven't done anything that day. So they are saying that, morale is important. If they are growing, they're learning, they're producing, and if they're satisfied with their performance, that's where it's more important in terms of Scrum.
Yeah, did you keep that focused on, like, are they happy with the process, or what's the question? I guess, because I use a company I used to work on, I used it, but then it actually became kind of a hindrance, because a lot of the things they were unhappy about were things that I couldn't fix because they needed to go to management, and it actually kind of backfired.
Yeah, I agree.
Interested if you keep it, what do you keep the scope?
Yeah.
scope too.
Right. You have to know where the problems are coming from. If there's something you can do, like for example, we have a compliance plan, a compliance program. Like for every project that's going to go to production, you have to go through some of the formal artifacts documentation. It was so painful. It's painful for the team, and then they scored low on that because of that process. But they said normally we were really happy as a team. We'll work together for so long. We love each other. We're working with each other. But then this GXP process is killing us. Okay, so I can change it, but it is what it is. But then I'm going to measure them again later when we are over that hump, and then see if things are changing and see anything we can change.
One of the metrics that I've used, it's not really Scrum metrics, but it's called return on time invested. So it's called Rhode. And basically at the end of a meeting, you have them put up on the way out the door, 1 to 4. And, basically, was this a good use of my time? And if you find let's say they continually say the refinement is not a good use of the time, then you can have a conversation about how can we make this better. And I found teams like that one, like that Rhode score.
Okay, I think we're about to expire the time. Let's see if you would like to continue or end the topic. Okay, I guess based on the voting, we're gonna end the topic with like 3 and 1 extend. Just gonna move to done. Scrum Team Working Agreement as the next one. So anybody not familiar with this? This is also coming from the Agile Rhode Island board backlog. Anyone doesn't know and really need an explanation on the working agreements?
Could you explain?
Yeah, sure. Working agreements is when you start working as a team, as a Scrum team, there are some rules that you put in, and you can put it at the beginning of the project or the team forms for the first time. So how we are going to work? What are the rules as a team? For example, how are you going to communicate? What is your process on some of the things? What is your process for code development, like reviews and things like that? So anything that goes and needs to be discussed with the team and agreed so that it will be like put into place. So that is the team working agreements. And in my opinion, these are very important. And I always put this as a first draft at the kickoff meeting when we have a project in my company. And then we keep revising it every retrospective, see if things are working or needs to change. So anyone else would like to talk on that?
Could I ask a follow-up question? So at my company, so I'm a team member at my company. I'm a business analyst, and we've formed and reformed teams several times since I've been here, and we've never had a formal working agreement establishment on any of my teams. So curious, like how formal is this, like a undocumented ceremony that you have, and then you refine it at the retrospectives you're saying, or what's people's experience with forming the first working agreement?
I think as soon as possible, and then start putting it somewhere like whatever the team documentation area. Keep like looking at it, refine it, and if something if something is not working, there's a problem issue coming in retrospective, and then you have to figure out what you can do differently, and that thing should be in part of your working agreement. Now it's something in the how team interacts, how the process is. Just put it out. From now on, we're going to do it that way, so that it will help us to improve. So this is like a working agreement. Just keep looking at it. It can be updated anytime. You don't have to wait for retrospectives either. But these are, this is the best time to look at it and just make sure that things are, working as decided by the team.
Yeah. I've always done working agreements whenever you bring the team together. You have a conversation on, how are we going to work together? And it could be as simple as, I will put myself on do not disturb. And if I'm not on do not disturb, then it's okay to come up and talk to me. I have had teams that have said, we want like quiet time between these particular hours, and we will not I'm not gonna, if you need me, come and get me, but I'm not really gonna respond to emails because I wanna deep dive into the code I'm writing during these hours. I've had teams, that do silly things like, don't eat tuna fish at your desk, because somebody really just hated the smell, so they had a problem with that in a previous team, so then they brought that up. So basically, it shouldn't be that long, but maybe 5 to maybe 8 items that'll help you work better. Now I've got one of the other coaches is working at home with her husband, and she says, I got a working agreement with him. If my door is closed, don't come in, because I'm busy. So that kind of things. We've had people put up, when we're in the office, put up signs like do not disturb signs. Whatever it is that will make this particular team work better together.
Yeah, like as simple as like turn on your videos when you're not in the office, especially around this time, everybody is home. You talk about it. If everybody is comfortable, you put it on your working agreement so that you can see face to face if you want, if the team prefers that way.
I've had teams where, folks normally don't come in early, so they might say, please don't set up any meetings before 9 a.m. because people have to, when we were in the office, they had to drop off their kids or something like that. But whatever, this group of 5 to 9 people find helpful to agree on ahead of time. And it's a really good process when you're first bringing that team together. The other thing that I find really helpful when you're bringing a team together is understanding just how much time people are spending on these teams. We do say that, you should be on one team and devote your entire time to that team, but often that doesn't happen. So let's say if you only are on 50% of this team, saying something like, I'm only on this team 50% of the time, making all the team aware of it can be a good thing.
Okay, so time is up. So let's see if you would like to continue. Okay, we're extending the topic. Let's put another 3 minutes. Would you like to finish your thoughts, Sue?
No, I was just about done.
Anybody has any input on that?
Yeah, I just put some ideas in the chat. Often we've called it a team norm session, and we'll start with multiple topics like what do people think the purpose, the motivation, how to show up, how we communicate, how we meet, collaborate, and deal with conflict. And then have people kind of put sticky notes into those areas, then kind of collate them, see if anything was missing, and then at the end, either put it in a shared space or on a poster and, review it maybe a couple months later. Like, everyone said we're going to, show up a minute before a meeting starts. Is that actually happening? And is it frustrating people? Should we revisit that?
Yeah, people put penalties for the people that are, late for the stand-up, for example. They put like, okay, you're gonna like tell us a joke if you're late to the stand-up, things like that. So it kind of makes the team work, in a more fun way.
So we have done team norms, but I was interested. I think Gamze, you said something about code reviews. So so these have all been kind of qualitative examples. Are there more process-oriented, like development examples that would be documented as part of the working agreement, or is that those levels of standards? Is that something else? I mean, for us, it kind of comes from outside of the team, I think, but curious what your experience has been.
Like department standards, or be more formalized in something like an actual definition of ready or definition of done.
Sometimes DoD and working agreements kind of like clash. Go hand in hand. Sometimes you almost you can put the same thing into both, but I guess depends on, at least you should do something about it. Either put in your definition of done or working agreement so that it's there for the team. Like there should be 2 like approvers on the PR, for example. That's our rule, at least 2. And this can be a working agreement because it's a part of the process for us, so that that code goes into the repository.
And we put that in the definition of done.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
important to put it somewhere, but there's no hard and fast rule.
Mhm. Right. I think if it is like more formal about the process, it can go to definition of done. As Sue said, maybe it's more team dynamics, how team works together. That's more like working agreement because you're agreeing to do those so that you can work better. Okay, I think that's another 3 minutes done. I would like to continue. Okay, so I think we had enough for this topic for 8 minutes. Let's move it down here. And the next one, planning poker tools and techniques. Okay, who would like to, whose item is that and would like to open it up?
That was me, Gamzee. In the past, I've used a couple of different techniques. One, I've used the literal cards where everybody picks their card and shows it at the same time. There's like an online site, and I can't remember, I think it's planningpoker.net or .com or something like that, which I've also used in the past, which is a free site. And of course, the developers figured out how to hack it, which was interesting. I'm in a new company a little less than a year, so I've been slowly introducing some different things with the team. One of the ones that we're ready to introduce is the actual more formal pointing during planning. And so I'm just wondering what has worked for other ideas that, I have some ideas on how to start it out, but other ideas that have worked for people. And then my team is mostly remote in another country. So I have some folks that really participate, that when we do have more informal pointing now, where they're really, sharing their input, and others who stay quiet. So I don't know if anyone has any techniques they've used to try to draw out the folks that have been a little bit more quiet. I mean, I have some ideas, but interested to hear what other people.
So one of the things we do is we use the fruit salad game or activity. Has anyone heard of that one?
Yeah, like smaller fruits that they get bigger ones, like strawberry, orange. Do you mean that?
Or you could, but you can ask questions about it. The cherries, do you put them in with or without the pit? Do you have the pitter? It's a little tool to pit them. So basically, it gets people to understand that it's not about the actual story point, but it's about the conversation that helps the team learn about what needs to be done in this story. So we start with the fruit salad to get everybody to understand what a story point is and the fact that it's really about the conversation. And then we talk about, you want to keep the team together. So because over time, the team will get better with estimation. But if you're constantly changing the team, then it won't. What we do, we use Microsoft Teams, and we have people put their story points in the chat. There's also a tool called that they download. Let me see, it's called Scrum Poker Cards that they download, and they use that, and then they hold it up. Again, just the fact that it's part of the conversation is critical. The fact that they don't have to be perfect at the beginning, that they will get better over time, is also important.
For teams that are in the same room together, it's not easier. You can use cards, you can even use like post-its to write on. I did that, but there's always like somebody not in the room. They're virtual. Now everybody is virtual. So what we have been using is called Planet Poker. I think it's a free online. It's not planning, planetitpoker.com. So we use that. You can choose what you want to use, like Fibonacci numbers, Scrum numbers. There are different configuration you can put, and you can also choose some of the points that you want to present to the team, not use up until 100. So that's been most convenient for my team to use Planet Poker, but I'm sure there are so many out there.
It's PLANIT poker.
Yeah,
Okay,
Planet Poker, right?
I threw a couple other links in the chat since people have been trying a lot recently.
So here is the one I'm talking about. Planet Poker.
Very good, thank you.
I think also another thing that you mentioned is people not talking. You know, some people are, especially now, everybody is virtual. I see that some people are so quiet. As a Scrum Master, I poke them like, what are you thinking? Why do you think it's an 8? What makes an 8? You know, how do you compare to 5? I constantly ask people, pull them in. That's what I do. It's one of the most painful ceremony right now since we went on to virtual. It was much more entertaining before, and you know, being face to face, at least some of the team.
Yeah.
And also what I started is I am asking for volunteers. I got someone to run it. I said, why don't you run it? Like somebody from the team, this planning session, why don't you do it and then see, maybe you'll make it more fun. So we started doing it. I'm there, but someone else is running the show. Okay, let's vote.
That's great. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we are actually even extend and end and no preference. I don't know. Guess maybe I'll just finish this topic and we can get back to that if we have more time. We have some more topics here. Okay, the next one is about running the retrospectives. Who would like to open it up? I think this came from us, right? Sue, this is one of the topics that, okay. Yeah, then.
So one of the things that I do is I take advantage of the tool. So there's something called funretrospectives.com. So I do take the time to try to plan them ahead. And, you know, there's all sorts of ones. There's like, you know, you put the sailboat up, right? You know, what puts wind in your sails and what, you know, anchors you down. Or there's the 3 little pigs, right? So what processes or what things do you do that are made of straw that you just think are gonna collapse because they're so fragile, you know? And what do you really do well, which is the stuff that's made of brick. So I really take the time to plan the retrospectives out and kind of, you know, rotate them through, and then use the websites. There is a funretrospectives.com. Esther Derby has a great book called Making Teams Great, which also goes through the retrospective process, which is worthwhile read.
Okay, so this is funretro.io. Is that the one you're talking about? Just as an example.
No, I don't think it's Fun Retro. I think it's.
This is what we use, so maybe yours is different.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there.
I just put one in the chat that's called Retro Mats, which has like a million ideas, and you just kind of click on it and it gives you a new idea for, you know, coming up with structure.
Yeah. When these are the tools, like what are the challenges when we're running retrospectives?
To get buy-in, especially if you do the same, if you see a Scrum Master who's used the same retro 2 or 3 times in a row, then, you know, people are like bored with it, and they don't want to do it. Or you've got someone who, you know, they have 5 problems and they try to solve all 5 of them in the next sprint, as opposed to just taking the top 2, or maybe 1 if it's a very big issue.
Yeah, it's also very important that you take action items and then we really put it on your board. Just try to make it happen in the next sprint, whatever is most pressing. Taking, you know, 1 that is very important, or 2, whatever you can handle, right?
Sometimes we'll take 5 minutes for just anonymous kind of entries, whether it's post-it notes or now onto a digital board, but to just have people be comfortable and putting out whatever idea they have, you know, so that people aren't talking over them.
Yeah, and also, right. You know, quietly putting your ideas up is great.
Then also, again, participation problems here, like the refinements. It's just like people sometimes feel disengaged and they don't really add. And you know, one thing that's helping me that I mentioned before is putting like a scale 1 to 5 there to their morale, and then seeing if it, you know, it is anonymous, so I don't have to know who said what, but sometimes people are afraid to put their real rating. If it's a company where, you know, it's things are punished, so that's, they're not free or safe to do that. So it's important to create like a safe environment and just telling the team over and over that this is safe, this is our meeting. And even like sometimes people put their retrospective items outside for others to see. Like, that's not the point here. The point here is not we're giving like documentation out to management. It's just here, we are here to improve, and we are here to make things a little bit differently so we can work better, we can produce more, and inspect and adapt on what we're doing. This is all about Scrum, right? Anybody else? So the one that you talked about, Sailboat, is there a tool to do that? I used to do it on like on the board in in-person meetings. Is there something digital you can do virtually?
To do which one?
Sailboat.
Oh, the sailboat. Well, you can do. I'm pretty sure you can do it with. There are tools where you can draw. I'm pretty sure you can draw on Mural. I haven't done it since I've been since COVID, but I believe that there's a drawing tool within Mural, and we're using Mural right now for our retros.
Yeah, the team didn't like the retro there, so we changed it to fun retro.
Well, ADO had mentioned that they were getting rid of their retro tool, but they got such a backlash, they are not getting rid of it. So the folks that bounced over to Mural, some of them have come back to ADO.
Okay. So based on your votes, we're going to end the topic now. We want to the last two. Okay, how to use, I guess, Scrum in the education and NGO sectors. So I would like the topic owner to start the discussion, please, on that. We haven't lost you yet. So we're anybody is presented this topic. Would you like to start, or should we just move on to the next topic?
I'm interested if people have experience, or even Carissa from Tech Collective, if you know the people there.
Definitely. Anybody has any experience? What are the challenges in education and NGO sectors? Like, what are the problems they are trying to solve with Scrum or Agile?
I can tell you I worked a little bit with some consultants who work with nonprofits, and they literally said, I'm not sure we could work in an agile way because everything we do is very contract based. And I said, whoa, the defense contractors are actually using agile. If anybody can use, agile and, is traditionally stuck in very specific contracts, it's certainly the defense industry. But still, they're dealing with small companies who want very concrete results and contract oriented. So it seemed like a leap for them to think about things that were not as perfectly concrete and never changing. That's some of the pushback I got.
So I had heard that one of the Scandinavian countries was using Scrum for education, and I just Googled Scrum education in Finland, and Scrum Alliance has a paper out there on how Finland was using Scrum in their education system. I think it's elementary and high school. So there are some good papers out there, but I don't have any direct experience.
Yeah, I've seen people talk about doing that, definitely in Europe. If you have a project-based system for classrooms and, there are tasks that kids pick up and then they have that sense of completion. They know what the definition of done is. They become very self-organizing. I've seen a couple of presentations on it where, teachers were just astounded. Kids would come into the class perfectly quiet, pick up their work and just dive into it and come back for questions instead of, the traditional command control of a teacher who has to manage everything. So interesting.
It's really nice. Maybe we can have a session on that if we can find someone to talk about it.
I'd love to have Providence schools using it at all levels, from their administration to teaching. But
any other inputs or questions on those?
Yeah, this is Criosa. I agree with what Doug just said. I think for us as a nonprofit, what is hard is if there's no a priority scale. Everything has to happen at the same time. Everything is important, and everything has the same deadline. And everything funnels through one person. So the decision making is through one person, and it's hard for things to trickle down when it's like a funnel. And as someone who also worked on the school districts in Providence, I definitely would love to have them hear from them. I've seen some teachers who've used some agile tests or try some agile methodologies in their classrooms and elementary school. They have been very successful in comparison to others who don't. So clearly it works. It's just the buy-in from the other side of the coin.
Yeah, I'm just going to put a note here, topic suggestion for our monthly sessions, if we can have someone to talk about it. Okay, we are almost done. Anybody has any ideas, opinions on this? Okay, let's just vote. Okay, so we are down to the last one. Even though there was like no voting, that's fine. Somebody brought this up. Does anyone have business stakeholders join ceremonies and meet ceremonies with stakeholders? How does it go? The owner of the topic, would you like to start the discussion?
I don't think I'm the owner, but I can start. The owner is
Okay, sure.
no longer here. So we do have stakeholders join the reviews. And in some cases, we have stakeholders join. We also have stakeholders join our quarterly planning sessions. And in some cases, our refinement sessions. And it's going really well, but we have to be very careful because we don't want to waste their time. So we want to make sure that when we do invite them, that, we kind of have our ducks in a row and we know, we don't want to invite them and then talk about all technical topics, let's say.
Yeah, ideally the reviews are the only ceremonies for stakeholders in the Scrum framework based on the Scrum guide. But as you said, like in refinement meetings, we can invite some others which are like technical expertise on the area where we can, ask questions, maybe understand the stories a little bit better. But I think when you include them more and more, it becomes much more difficult if they don't go through the PO funnel just to talk about, what they want, what they need. Then it becomes a distraction for the whole team. So I guess for that reason, it's a good idea to limit the joining, inviting, especially to stand-ups. Like sometimes in stand-up, there's 50 people. It shouldn't be like that. It should be only the team. If they want to come and listen, sometimes that's fine, but they should know that they're not the participants in some of the ceremonies. They're just there to listen. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would agree on the stand-ups. We've had stakeholders who will attend, and generally, they want to just kind of understand how Agile is working, especially companies where it's been a transformation. But then we always try to not have them participate in the stand-up part, but often we have the parking lot time after where it's kind of a general discussion or go into depth. And say if a stakeholder had an announcement or something that they wanted to kind of bring to the whole team and get feedback, then it's a good opportunity because that meeting's always happening and they have that parking lot time, you know, after the statuses.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And there's also which stakeholders part, like how do you differentiate what stakeholders include even in the reviews? Anybody else interested to talk about it, or I can move it to done if you're done with this. Okay, before we close it, like stakeholders' main contact point is a product owner. Product owner has the person that they should talk to and deal with mostly, and they are welcome in the reviews because that's the point of the review, to show them what we have and understand where we're going, in what direction, and get their opinion, ideas, opinions, suggestions. So that's what Scrum prescribes, having them in the review meetings. Okay, I think we are done. These are all the topics. Anything would you like, I mean, before we close the session, anything would you like to say about Lean Coffee or some of the topics that we discussed? Any suggestions for us going, further with this? Would you like to see more of these kind of meetings?
I like them. Yeah. I think
That's nice.
Facilitating, Gamzee.
Okay, guys, I guess we lost a couple people, but it's becoming late. So maybe we can close it now. I think.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for joining and participating.
Yes, and our next meeting is on September the 15th. And Jean Jandel will talk about exposing uncomfortable topics, errors and omission with scaling. So we hope to see everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, have a good night.
Everybody.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.